Hey, it's Nate. I'm back. Today I want to talk to you about bad parent programming. You read that right. Bad parent programming. And look, it reads like it is. It sounds like what it is. We're talking about parents, you and me, even guardians, even educators who are bad. And we are because our programming is bad. Just as the case is with a computer and a software program, if the inputs of the programmer is bad and programs in bad things, we get bad outcomes. Many of us are bad at our job of being a parent. And parents, it is a job. It's a profession, and yet too many of us treat it like we're novices. Too many of us act like it's a part-time hobby. It's not. It's the most important job, responsibility, obligation that you could have. And it's not just about you. It's not even just about the little Johnny or Jane or whoever you're raising. It's about something bigger. It's about the planet. See, you never know who you're raising and what they could end up doing. They could either be a great world leader or they could be one that's terrible. They could be a great captain of industry, or they could be someone who only cares about their own wealth. Who you raise matters. And thus, we need to get rid of this bad program. All right, so let's get started. There are 7 ways and who are they? They are all of the people who you've been taking advice from. Sometimes it's your parents. Hey, mom. Sometimes it's your friends. Sometimes it's your neighbors who are not your friends, but you watch them and you think that they know what they're doing. And in fact, you haven't talked to their children. Their children are not happy about who their parents are. Sometimes it's the people that you admire, your athletes and entertainers and other celebrity influencers who come on and tell you about what it means to parent and how great a relationship they have with their children. But you never talk to their children and you don't know what kind of outputs their children are having and how their children are, if they are at all, doing anything to leave the planet better than it was when they arrived. So here's the first thing you need to know so you can change the program. The first thing you need to know is if you don't already have one, your child needs what we call a life template. Now, what's a life template? A life template is a backward design approach to getting anywhere you want to go in life. Imagine it being like a GPS for your best life. Talk to parents all the time, and most parents think this is about getting to a great college or university. How do I get my child to a great school? Okay, what do you consider to be a great school? We have to define what it is and where you want to go, just like you would with a GPS. You can't just say, hey, whatever device you use, how do I get to so-and-so? You have to say, hey, whatever device you use, how do I get to Sesame Street? And then that device will give you the directions to that place. All the turns to make. When you make an error, tell you to turn around, tell you to go a few 4 blocks, come up the street, come back over. This is what the life template is. It is a GPS of the heart so your child can live their best life. But too few parents have that. You don't have a direction for your child. So when someone asks you, what do you want for your child's life? You say, I want my child to be happy. And what does that mean? I want my child to be healthy. And what does that mean? I want my child to have a life better than mine. What does that mean? Ladies and gentlemen, that's poor programming. You have to be specific and detailed about who you want your children to be. Not what you want them to do, not how much money you want them to earn, but if their life were to end today, what is it that you want the world to say about the child that you gave life to? You need a life template, and we'll get into some of that later on and sharing more of the tools, techniques, and strategies to go along with that. But that's the number one thing, parents, where your program is bad. You don't have a template for where your child is going, or let's just say a North Star to get you there. Number 2, why you've been programmed to be bad, or why you've been programmed as a bad parent. The number 2 reason is you don't have a village. Hey, I'm sure you heard the African proverb that it takes a village to raise a child. Most people have. I think Bill Clinton and Hillary once quoted it. People quote it all the time. And yet, no one ever tells you how to build a village. How do you build a village? Other than the village you end up getting because you don't know how to build a village, which is a village of idiots. We don't need any more villages of idiots because we need people who can model for us where we want our children to go. Now, when I think of a village, I think of the Lion King. And I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time with that because people who know me know I could go all day talking about the Lion King and all the messages that exist in there. But I will say this. One of the great things I noticed in that movie is that Simba had a village. From Mufasa to Sarabi to Rafiki to Zazu, Simba had a village. And so here's what we teach. We teach a village creating system called the starting five. And if you're a basketball fan, it'll make all the sense in the world for you. If you like basketball and I ask you to pick the 5 best players ever that you would like to put on your team, you would probably pick the 5 best Hall of Fame players at their position. You'd pick the best point guard. You pick the all-time best shooting guard. You pick the all-time best small forward. You pick the all-time best power forward. You pick the all-time best center. What you wouldn't pick are people who play pickup basketball. You pick the people who are Hall of Famers. So that's what I'm asking you to do when you build your child's village. Pick point guard, shooting guard, small forward, power forward, and center that help you elevate who your child is going to be. Now, what do I mean? Point guard. Someone who points your child in the right direction, guards all of their hopes and dreams. Shooting guard. Someone who tells your child to shoot for the moon. And if you miss, don't worry, baby. You might still land up on the stars. That's to quote Les Brown. A small forward. Someone who will not let your child miss the small details in life. Got to dot all your I's. Got to cross all your T's. No. That's not done well enough. You can do it better. You need a small forward. You need a power forward. And the power forward sometimes is less for the child and more for you and me because we get tired of our children. Yeah, I have a child and sometimes I get tired of him and sometimes he gets tired of me. And then there's someone who reminds me that none of this is about me. This is about giving a child an opportunity to live a life better than mine, to do better than me, to make a contribution to the planet more than I ever could have imagined. And thus, I must power forward. And then lastly, and not least, is the center of influence. What do I mean by that? The center of influence, someone who knows people, who can make connections. It doesn't have to be somebody famous. It just may be somebody who has a wonderful disposition that's such that whenever someone is around, they want to help that person achieve something, which could include helping you help your child become whoever they want to be when their time on this planet is up. Number 2, right? Create a village. The third thing, cannot emphasize this enough. My grandmother used to tell me this all the time about trees and fruit. She used to say, Nate, ye shall be known by the fruit that you bear. And I was like, Grandma, I have no idea what you're talking about. But I understand now that we're all trees and we produce fruit. Now, however you want to imagine this, you are a tree and there's some fruit that you produce. Now, the question is, what kind of tree are you? See, some of us think we're apple trees and they get mad because there's a peach hanging up. Some of us get mad because we think we're a pear tree and then there's a mango hanging from our tree. But the truth is, whatever you produced yourself or reproduced a version of yourself. The question is the fruit you produce, apple tree, is the apple ripe? Is the apple sweet? Is the apple a blue ribbon quality? Or is the apple about to fall off the tree? Is the apple rotten to the core? Is the apple spoiled and bruised? Whatever the apple is, ladies and gentlemen, you created. Remember, ye, you and me, shall be known by the fruit that we bear. And too often parents try to pretend like you don't have anything to do with this fruit. It's yours. Now, there are some contributing factors. We do have an ecosystem. But as the seed who decides, you meet somebody and y'all love each other maybe, or have a night together and something is created and you plant something and it grows and it becomes this fruit. You did that. Fruit didn't invite itself here. You invited the fruit here. And now the question is, what kind of fruit will it be? Now, sometimes you get irrigation. Sometimes you get climate change, dare I say. Sometimes we talk about the soil in the ground, but at the end of the day, the responsibility for the fruit is yours. And we're going to dive into that more later. But I just want you to remember that when you start giving your children the side eye or whatever, just remember, whatever they are because of you. All right. Number 3 is gone. Number 4. The fourth reason that your programming is bad or they have programmed you incorrectly is that, let me say this one slowly, you have not raised yourself. Let me say that one more time. You are trying to raise somebody and you haven't elevated yourself. You haven't elevated your own thinking. You haven't elevated your own spirit. You haven't elevated your own humanity. And yet, you want to talk about raising somebody. The first thing, moms and dads, you got to do, check yourself. As Michael Jackson famously said, I'm starting with the man in the mirror. You need to look in the mirror. You may not like what you see. If you're honest, take an honest look at yourself. Look, my son used to play soccer. Now, as I said, I'm going to tell you the story, a lot of stories as we go through these weeks and these episodes. My son was playing soccer. I believe he was about 4. And like all parents, you run out there, and of course, you take the snacks and your juice boxes and all that. That part, I remember. But when you start getting like the parents who want your kids to win, you start yelling and screaming at them, run faster! No, kick the ball! No, work harder! And when the game is over, you tell them they should have done something better. But here's what I noticed. The majority of the parents who were yelling and screaming at their kids about running faster were overweight. Could not run across the block if they had to. So, how can you then tell a child to do something that you yourself can't do? You want to tell a child to work harder. How many of you all really work hard? How many of your children see you sitting on your butt, Netflixing and chilling, and yet you want to yell at them about giving their best effort at something? I'm going to say this one more time. Do not ask another person to be raised up until you elevate your own self in mind, body, and spirit. Number 5, or the 5th way you have been given bad programming, is that you think you are raising children. It's the funniest thing in the world. You think you are raising a child. The very moment that your baby is born, your baby ceases to be a child. Your baby begins the process of becoming what they're going to be as an adult, a man or a woman. Let me say that one more time for you. You think you're raising a child. Hear it all the time. I'm raising kids. How do I raise kids? You're not raising kids. That's why you're failing at it. You're raising men and women. I call it the men MITs, men in training. I call the women WITs, women in training. See, Aristotle once told us this. He said, bring me a child by 7, I'll show you the man. Aristotle will be chastised today because he didn't say person, but you get the point. Aristotle was right. And many child psychologists will tell you it's true that most children are who they're going to be as an adult by age 7. In fact, by age 7, which is when kids are 2nd to 3rd grade, their 3rd grade reading scores pretty much tell you what's going to happen in their life. And sadly, in America, 2/3 of children who are in 3rd grade cannot read at 3rd grade level. That's 1, 2, 3, and you only got one that can do it. I hope that's not my middle finger. It's not. You only have 1 out of 3 who can read it at grade level. And by the time those kids graduate from high school, 2/3 of those kids, of that one remaining, will be projected to end up on welfare or worse, a part of the penal system. Why is that? Because you think you're raising boys and girls and you're raising men and women. Actually, you are a partner. You are a guide. Hopefully, you are a friend to those people that you are allegedly raising. And one more thing about friendship, since I mentioned it, look, I hear people all the time say, you shouldn't be your child's friend. I'm going to tell you, I can't cuss because this is supposed to be content that's supposed to be deliverable to children too. I'm going to tell you this. If you can't be your child's friend, then something is critically wrong. Who else's friend should you be? You gave this thing life and you tell them you can't be a friend of it. So what would you be? Just an instructional coach? Would you be just a disciplinarian? No, you have friends, and your best friends, your truest friends, they tell you the truth about yourself and you don't take it badly. You take it like they want the best for you. Your best friends can lead you in the right direction, and you know that wherever they lead you, it's okay because it's going to be okay because they're good people. So why, in God's name, do you say, I can't be my child's friend? It's utter garbage. You can be your child's friend, but in order to do that, I should take you back to point 4. You have to elevate yourself so that when you are being someone's friend, you are a real friend, a good friend, a friend like no one will ever have. That's what you should be doing as a parent. So yes, back to the point, because I got a little sidetracked, got excited about that friendship thing. MITs, men in training, WITs, women in training. You're not raising children. You're not raising boys and girls. You're raising men and women in training. All right, number 6. This is especially for you parents who think y'all so busy, think your job is so important. Let me tell you this right now. Let me walk into the camera so you can see me good. You cannot have it all. You cannot have it all. You can have it all, but not at one time. You can have it all in one area today and all in another area tomorrow, but you can't have it all the time. You just can't do it. So please stop trying to do it. You can't do it. Here's an example. Have you ever been to a circus? Have you ever seen the person doing the high wire act also be the lion trainer? Absolutely not. The person would die. They'd either be eaten by the lion or they fall off the high wire. You cannot be great at 2 things. There are no 2 sport people playing a sport at the same time, any professional league in the world, where they are the all-star or the best in their field in 2 things at one time. It doesn't happen. In fact, we can hardly find a person who's a Hall of Famer in 2 things at a time. You know why? Because greatness requires concentrated effort. It requires deliberate practice on one thing. So you, moms and dads, can be great at work, meaning you give your deliberate effort to that, or you can be great at home with your children. But if you're giving your all to work, you have very little to none to give to your children. So you have to decide what you're going to be great at. Now, I've talked to you about creating a village, and that's critical because I borrowed from the Lion King once again. Mufasa was the king and was responsible for all the Pride Land, which means he had a lot of job to do. So he had to incorporate his child's upbringing with a group of people who could help him because he understood I can't be a great king all day, every day, and be a great parent all day, every day. Sometimes I'm going to not be so good, but then I need a team of people to help me and make up the slack. And sometimes I may be over here king and I need to help with people to make up the slack over here. But I know I can't have it all, and you can't have it all either. If I was going to have it all, you can't have it all. Moms and dads, you got to make a decision. You decided to bring a life into this planet. You did. Again, like I said, you had this romantic moment or whatever you did, and somebody was born. You created, you made the decision. Those children did not ask to be here. There are no people on the planet who got here because they just manifested their existence. I do believe in manifestation, but that's a little bit too far. There are no people who just said, you know what? I want to be born into the earth. Let me get this woman and this man to get together, and they're going to swap DNA, and I'm going to be born. It doesn't happen. You invited them here. We'll talk about that in a little bit, but I just want to make the point before I end and go to point 7. You, moms and dads, one more time, cannot have it all. Last but not least, number 7. You got to understand this. You invited your children here. As I just said earlier, nobody manifests themselves to the planet. They have to be invited. You invited them. They're like special guests. And yet, many times we treat them like they're bothersome. We treat them like we didn't want them to come over. We treat them like they're a stranger. Let me tell you about the last time I saw my father. No, I'm not going to do that. My mother and my sister might be a little offended by it. I tell you that story so early. We're just getting to know each other. I'll tell you later on. But listen, you invited your children here. They didn't invite themselves. And so thus, you should treat them like they are. They are special invited guests. Look, they are human beings made in the image of a creator. They have the most sophisticated hardware of any being on the planet. You created that. That means they can be whatever you can imagine them being. They can be special and people who change the world, make the world better, or they can be trash because you treat them like trash. But whatever you give them, programming, bad programming, good programming, whatever you give them, that's what they're going to be. So I'm going to ask you, I'm going to plead with you between now and the next time we talk to begin to treat your children if you're already not doing it. And listen, some of the comments listening to that TED Talk indicate to me that a lot of y'all are not treating your children like special invited guests. You're treating them like somebody you didn't want to come over the house. As you would like to say to them, you ain't got to go home, but you got to get up out of here. I'm going to ask you between now and the next time we talk, as we go into this stuff in more detail, to start to think about who you invited to the planet. And ask yourself, am I treating them the way I would treat a king or a queen if they came to my house? Am I treating them the way I would treat some celebrity? Beyonce, Taylor Swift, LeBron James, whoever, Donald Trump, whoever you ascribe to as your celebrity of choice, how would you treat that person if they entered your home? Would you treat them equal to what you treat your child? Or would you treat them better than what you treat your child? Or, dare I say, this is also a possibility, you treat your child better than you would treat them. All right, those are the 7 things. I should just leave the 7 up there. The 7 ways they, whoever they are, and you know who they are, first one is the person looking in the mirror, program you to be a bad parent. You don't have to be a bad parent. You can do better. Again, in the coming weeks, I'll be sharing more information. We'll break those things down. I'll share with you how these things have something to do with your child's educational choices, what colleges they're able to be admitted to. I'm going to talk a whole lot more than about grades and test scores. I'll leave that to the educational consultants who charge you hundreds of thousands of dollars to get your kids to school, but you could have saved the money and spent the money on just sending them to school without the consult. But I'll get into that later. But look, I'll be back. We'll break these things down. And hopefully you'll be able to have children who, like mine, is able to do more with his life than I was ever able to do with my life. A child who, to borrow from Dan Sullivan, could 10x his life as compared to his father. My child will learn to speak 4 languages plus. I speak 1, and you know I got a little bit of difficulty with King's English, so that's up for debate. My child also left the country at 16 and played soccer in Brazil and traveled to Germany and other places. I didn't even have a passport growing up. So if you start counting the various differences between his life and my life, it's easy to tell that he is 10 times plus better than me. But I don't care so much about my child. I do. I love him to death. But this is not about a commercial about how good my child is. This is a commercial, if you will, about how I believe all children deserve an opportunity to be better than us. Because if all we're ever going to do is raise children that are equal to us, then why bother have children? The objective should be, it used to be, when parents had children, they wanted their children's lives to be better than them. Today I hear parents talking about they want generational wealth, they want a house so big, they want a particular kind of car, all that kind of silliness. My grandmother only went to the 5th grade. My grandfather, according to my grandmother, may not have gone to school at all. My mother and father finished high school, hence better. My sister and I went to college, graduate school, and law school. My son has surpassed that. I don't know if he can go to get more education, but the places he's gone have been far greater than me. That's what I want you to want for your children. And if you're interested, over the coming weeks and months, that's exactly what I'm going to show you how to do. All right, y'all, until next time, be great, be good, get rid of bad programming so you can start living your life. And your children can live their life just as you always imagined.